Everybody. So this, I can see this is the hardcore. After 2 full days of festivals, you still want to hear. And also, participants, welcome, those online. And we can close that door. Dimitri, close the door. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari and Yashodanandana Padjana Ranjana Yashodanandana Padjana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purika Acharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila HG Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purika Acharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Krishna Fest Ki Jai, Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. So, again, welcome to everybody. And tonight I'm going to be reading a little bit from the Nectar of Devotion, which is Srila Prabhupada's translation of the... Uh-oh. We got an echo. I don't know what that's coming from.
I'll mute the Zoom, Prabhu. Give me a second. I'll mute the person in the Zoom.
You're going to tell me when to continue?
Yes, Prabhu. Just give me a second.
I'm giving you many seconds. So everyone can meditate on Krishna, chant Hare Krishna silently. Tapas, you there?
Yes, Prabhu, you can continue.
Shall I start?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, all right. Little glitch. He's in India, by the way, managing everything from India, 10,000 miles away, so cut him a little slack. So today I'm going to be reading a little bit from the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada's translation of Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and also Srimad Bhagavatam's second canto. So we're going to begin with one of the most, I should say, beloved passages in Srila Prabhupada's books. Many of you who are familiar with reading the Nectar of Devotion will recognize this right away. It's from the preface. Srila Prabhupada is giving an introduction and telling some of the most important aspects of the book. And he says here, near the latter part of the preface to the Nectar of Devotion, the basic principle of the living condition is that we have a general propensity to love someone. No one can live without loving someone else. This propensity is present in every living being. Even an animal, like a tiger, has this loving propensity, at least in a dormant stage, and it is certainly present in the human beings. The missing point, however, is where to repose our love so that everyone can become happy. At the present moment, the human society teaches one to love his country or family or his personal self, but there is no information where to repose the loving propensity so that everyone can become happy. That missing point is Krishna. And the Nectar of Devotion teaches us how to stimulate our original love for Krishna and how to be situated in that position where we can enjoy our blissful life. In the primary stage, a child loves his parents, then his brothers and sisters, and as he daily grows up, he begins to love his family, society, community, country, nation, or even the whole of human society. But the loving propensity is not satisfied even by loving all human society. That loving propensity remains imperfectly fulfilled until we know who is the Supreme Beloved. Our love can be fully satisfied only when it is reposed in Krishna. This theme is the sum and substance of the Nectar of Devotion, which teaches us how to love Krishna in 5 different transcendental mellows. And if I may say, it's also the sum and substance of the Hare Krishna movement and the process of Bhakti Yoga, which is what this book is all about. Our loving propensity expands just as the vibration of light or air expands, but we do not know where it ends. The Nectar of Devotion teaches us the science of loving every one of the living entities perfectly by the easy method of loving Krishna. We have failed to create peace and harmony in human society. Can anyone argue that point? Hare Krishna. We have failed to create peace and harmony in human society, even by such great attempts as the United Nations, because we do not know the right method. The method is very simple, but one has to understand it with a cool head. The Nectar of Devotion teaches all persons how to perform the simple and natural method of loving Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we learn how to love Krishna, then it is very easy to immediately and simultaneously love every living being. It is like pouring water on the root of a tree or supplying food to one's stomach. The method of pouring water on the root of a tree or supplying food to the stomach is universally scientific and practical, as every one of us has experienced. Everyone knows well that when we eat something, or in other words, when we put food in the stomach, the energy created by such action is immediately distributed throughout the whole body. Similarly, when we pour water on the root of a tree, the energy thus created is immediately distributed throughout the entirety of even the largest tree. It is not possible to water the tree part by part, nor is it possible to feed the different parts of the body separately. The Nectar of Devotion will teach us how to turn the one switch that will immediately brighten everything everywhere. One who does not know this method is missing the point of life. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of the Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So in this preface to the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada is giving us an insight into the actual goal, as he mentions, of the process of Bhakti Yoga. We learn from the Bhagavad Gita, and I'm going to read a passage from the 15th chapter in a minute, that the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita is that we're not this physical body, but we're a spirit soul within. We're the Atma within. And since the body that we inhabit now is one of many that we've had over countless incarnations. But of course we've forgotten them all. Unless Krishna gives us that forgetfulness, we couldn't live for a minute. Try to think what it would be like to remember all those other bodies and all those other diseases and deaths, and not only human life, but tree life. I was walking to the temple here. I just live a couple of blocks away. And as everyone knows who comes to Pacific Beach or lives here, these huge, they're faux coconut trees. There's no actual coconuts on them, but they're palm trees, right? And they're standing here. They've been standing here for at least as long as I've been here, which is 33 years, and they're standing a lot longer. And each one of those trees is a living entity just like us, within that tree body, isn't it? I mean, that's what we learn. Wherever there's a sign of life, and those trees are living, they're green at the top, they're getting their nourishment somehow all the way up, and they're enjoying the San Diego sun. But what a tragedy it is for a living being who is part and parcel of God, part and parcel of Krishna, which is what I'm going to read in the 15th chapter. Mamai vangso jiva loka jiva bhuta sanatana. Krishna says every living being is my part and parcel. It's angsha. It's a very important concept. The word angsha is something like, we got a good example right here, the drop of water, drop of seawater. So there's huge amount of water in this Pacific Ocean, no doubt. But if you get one cup and you get one drop, you analyze that drop, it'll have the same basic chemical composition as the whole sea. You taste it, it's a little salty, right? So an angsha is something, a part of a larger body that has the qualities of that larger thing in minute degree. Another very good example is the sun and the sun rays. Can you ask him to be a little quiet out there? It's coming through. Thank you. And so the sun is unlimitedly powerful, full of heat and full of light, isn't it? That's the basic thing that we see. So each one of the sun rays has a little bit of light and a little bit of heat. When we ask someone, open the window so let the sun in, well, we don't want to let the sun in. Let the sun shine in. Probably you let the sun in and you're finished. But we know we get a manageable part of the energy of the sun. It gets brighter and it gets warmer, right? That's it. So similarly, we are part and parcel of Krishna, part and parcel of God. And therefore we have his qualities in minute degree. What are those qualities? Well, we have senses. We can see, we can hear, we can taste, touch, smell, right? We have active senses. We have hands, we can grab things. We have the human form. And we learn from Bhagavad Gita and other books that the original form of God is a human-like form. It's not that we create God in anthropomorphism, that we have imagined the form of God in our own likeness. No. We're the copies. He's the original. We have a godlike form, but we call it a human form. So that's the original form. Krishna has two hands. We know he has other forms. He has four-handed form, Narayan, Vishnu. He also sometimes appears in other forms like Lord Nrsingadev, very famous, a special form to fulfill the benedictions of Lord Brahma, who Hiranyakashipu prayed to, please make me immortal. He meditated for thousands of years, unthinkable austerities, and he finally got the darshan of Brahma. If you read his prayers in the Bhagavatam, you see he keeps addressing him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He really wants to get the ultimate benediction, which is liberation. Can't get that, So he has all of these conditions. Well, just bless me so I can't be killed in the day and the night. You got it. I can't be killed by a human being or an animal or any other creature that you've created. You got it. You can't be killed in the air, in the water, or on land. You got it. I'm covered. I can't be killed. I can't be killed by any weapon. You got it. The nails aren't really a weapon. So he had to appear, Krishna fulfilled Brahma's boons in order to kill Hiranyakashipu. So that's one of the forms. So Krishna can appear in any form. He appears as Lord Chaitanya, which is also human form. That's a special form for giving us mercy. So we have this angsha, meaning that we have his qualities to minute degree, but we're also encased in a human body. which is not really alive, it's just animated because we're inside. I used to work in a hospital many, many years ago. And I worked in the inhalation department where it gives oxygen and things. So I saw a lot of people die, And there's that change. As soon as the eyes go glassy and the movement stops, and of course they're usually trying to revive them with extraordinary means, but then they can't, So there's that, when the consciousness leaves, you can see something is gone. Even the doctors can see that, and they started giving reports. Well, here's a person who almost died, but he came back and he was describing what was going on in our extraordinary means of trying to revive him. And this whole development, I remember when I was in the 70s, where we started the near-death experiences, and then we had Ian Stevenson. Does that name ring a bell? Some people, the old devotees remember that. He was a professor somewhere in the South of psychology, and he wanted to investigate if there's any empirical evidence for transmigration of the soul. This is the first reality that the lesson of Krishna, that you transfer to another body at death. But you can't see it, and so a lot of people doubt it. So he wanted to find some empirical evidence. So he learned about, oftentimes in India, but not exclusively, children. Children are growing up, and as soon as they learn to speak, they'll say something to the mother. You're not my real mother. I really belong in this family, and my name is this and this. And a lot of them would dismiss it as just baby talk, But he found some of those, those instances, and he went and investigated, because they would say what town it was and so forth. It's all very local, maybe 20 miles away maximum, And sure enough, there was someone who died with that name and had that relationship, and he kept finding that evidence. Empirical evidence for transmigration of the soul. And there's one on YouTube. I saw this just a few years ago. This is in the United States of America. Some young boy was growing up, and he kept saying, this is my name, and I was a pilot in World War II, and this is the plane I flew and everything. And his parents were like the Orthodox Christians, and they were saying, what is this, And so they started to look it up, and sure, there was someone of that name who flew that plane, and he was a hero in World War II. It's on YouTube. So the point is that this is a fact. And one of the things we learn from the phenomenon of transmigration is that this is the way in which we stay bound to this world, is that we forget everything, and we're not exposed to this knowledge, and so we simply live according to whatever body we happen to have. And we identify with it. Right? And the race, the nationality, the gender, all kinds of things. And this is what we identify with, even though we keep changing throughout our life. And eventually, of course, we leave it all behind when we die. So what the process of Bhakti Yoga does is that it, first of all, through this knowledge, then you're given a whole different view of your life and the meaning of your life. Because after all, let's face it, what are the main problems you face in life? When you get older, you can see, well, yeah, this is like a big problem, And then there's always disease, and you don't have to get older for that. We just had the pandemic, of course, if you're older, you're more. And then, ultimately, there's death. Either you die unnaturally, or you die according to old age and disease, right? You got two choices. But everyone's going to die. And then you get reborn. If you didn't get reborn, then you can say, well, I'm just going to have as much fun as possible and then die, and that'll be it. But that's not how it works. And that's why I wanted to read from this 15th chapter. This is the beginning 15:7. I already cited this verse. Very important verse where Krishna says, Mamai vangso jiva loka jiva bhute sanatana manakshastan indriyani pakatistani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world, that's us, are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. So the mind is kind of the center of all the senses. When you think about it, the mind is directing, oh, there's something interesting, sees through the eyes, now pursue that. That's not interesting, forget that. Interesting this way. So and you're hearing, right? And through all the senses, you're always getting input, and the things that you may want to pursue for your pleasure, then you go for that, right? And then you activate the hands and all the other things. And this is how our life goes on. And we're doing it within the identity that we've been trained to from childhood, according to our family and name and race and all of the different things, language. So what Krishna is saying here is that this is our situation. The first thing is that my eternal parts, and Prabhupada would quote this for Sanatana, we remain Angsha. We can never become God. We never were God. We never will be God. We're eternally the Angsha of God, the part and parcel of God, with His qualities in minute degree. And so we're in this Prakriti. Prakriti means simply nature, material nature. So he's describing transmigration. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Now, this carrying different conceptions of life, where is it carried? It's carried in the mind. You see, when you experience something, there's a record of it, pleasurable or painful, right? When you do something, there's a record of it. This is all the law of karma. It's not only recorded in your mind, but it's recorded by Krishna. There's another, Krishna describes in this chapter, in the previous chapter, I'm also in the heart of everyone. We reside in the heart as the soul, but there's also the super soul, an expansion of Krishna. And He's giving us intelligence to do this and do that. Just like the little, we learned in grade school. Oh yes, the little insects, the birds, everything, they work by instinct. They don't study in school. The birds know how to fly. They come out, after a few days, they're flapping their wings and flying. The insects know where to go, and to try to find food, where safety, all of this is, they're not learning it in school. It's all coming from the super soul and teaching them. So, we have two bodies. We have the gross body, we call the body, right, made of matter, gross matter, but we also have the mind, intelligence, and ego. This is called our subtle body. Whatever we do in this world is recorded in the subtle body. And as we associate with nature, with these modes of nature, I won't get into that now, but goodness, passion, and ignorance, that comes up later. That is determining our next body. We're creating a record, we're creating a template, which is the subtle body, and then we get another body in the next life. Now, so there's two things. One is our own desires, our fears, anxieties, all this is recorded, plus our karma. If we become a vicious person, we're hurting others, and we don't have any moral compass or very little, then we're sure to suffer. We just finished reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, which deals with many of the same subjects, but in expansive form. In the fifth canto, at the end of the fifth canto, there's a description of the material hells. Not just one hell, but according to the different kinds of vicious activity one can perform, he'll suffer for many years. Not for eternity. There's no eternal damnation, no. Every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna, and we always get another chance eventually. But it can take many, 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 many years to get back to the human form of life. Now, why is the human form of life so important? Because only in human life can we use our intelligence to direct the activities of the senses and the mind and the lower self so that we become purified and we become qualified eventually to return back home, back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada's immortal phrase. In other words, we're all exiles here. We don't belong here. In a very important way, it's kind of a prison house. Let's call it a reformatory. A prison where there's a possibility of reformation and getting out, graduating. But we don't know that. We need to come in contact with that knowledge and those who personify the knowledge. That's called the acharya or the guru, who can not only teach us, but exemplify the teachings so that we think, because it's a radical departure often from material life. So he's describing, I just want to finish this little lesson on transmigration. So the living entity is struggling with the mind, and the mind, with all of the records of all these sensual activities, desires, everything, it takes us, the soul carries that to the next body. And what does he say here? I'm sorry, I lost my place. 15:7, yeah. So the next verse says, The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So this has been going on since time immemorial. And then this very interesting verse, Shrotram Chaksham Sparshanangcha. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So this is the basic principles of transmigration. And that word enjoys in Sanskrit is upasevate, which also means becomes addicted to. You become addicted to a certain set of sense objects, in each body. So this is our situation, and yes, there's pleasure here, but it's very fleeting. And that pleasure that we can get from the contact of the senses with the sense objects is actually our worst enemy. Because it makes us think that we can enjoy here, that we can somehow get some happiness here, but we can't. And then one of my favorite verses in the Bhagavad Gita, many of you heard it, I've been giving these classes in the evening for 30 years. Yehi sangsparjija boga dukkha yonaya evate adyantabanta kote anateshu ramate buddha. That the pleasure, boga, that comes from the contact of the senses with the sense objects is the source of your suffering. It's certainly the source, if that's all you do, of your rebirth, because you have all these desires to be fulfilled that you haven't fulfilled in this lifetime. So that it has a beginning and an end. Now, but there's a type of enjoyment that doesn't have a beginning and an end, and that's spiritual enjoyment. This is what's going on in the spiritual world. Krishna has a body, but it's not made of these elements that we have. It's called a Satchit Ananda body. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. Vigraha means body. This is a verse by Lord Brahma. The Satchidananda means eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. That's the nature of that body. We also have a body like that. Within. It's not developed. It's called the Sarup Siddhi, the perfected form. So now we're taking on all these different forms, temporary forms. Even in this one body, the form is temporary. We've all had childhood body. What happened to that body? It's gone now, right? Then you have adolescent body. Well, you grow up, that's gone. And gradually it also goes, and even this body will disappear, never to appear again. So this transmigration is going on even in one life, and then it continues on to another life. So we want to end that process. We want to end that process, and that goes back to our reading from the Nectar of Devotion. The price of re-entering the spiritual world is reawakening our natural love for God, natural love for Krishna. And that's a verse, the most recent incarnation of Krishna is called Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he's Krishna in the mood of his best servant, Radharani. There's some verses describing how Krishna in the spiritual world, he saw his own image in a very mirror-like floor or wall, and he said, "Oh, my beauty is just unprecedented. But I can't enjoy it like Srimati Radharani does. She appreciates it more than I can. So I'd like to take her position." And the pleasure that she gets from loving me and serving me with love is more than I can conceive. So I want to taste that pleasure. And the joy and happiness she gets from loving me and being loved by me, I really want to taste that. So that's why Krishna appears with the mood and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. So that's Lord Chaitanya. And what is his great gift to the world? The Harinam Sankirtan. How can we reawaken and cut through the many, many eons of developing this material mentality? That's what it means to be conditioned, habituated to living in the material world. So this is the great process of Harinam Sankirtan, especially the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And there's a beautiful verse in the 12th canto. The Srimad Bhagavatam has 12 cantos. The most famous is the 10th canto, describing Krishna's Leela in Vrindavan and also Mathura and Dwarka, his birth, and so many wonderful pastimes. We just are celebrating this month the Damodar pastime. And you're all invited, by the way. We're going to have another little kirtan. If you haven't offered your lamp today, please don't be shy. We have some lamps here. The devotees will show you how to offer during the kirtan. And so the verse in the 12th canto, it describes first a long series of verses describing the degradation of this age, Kali Yuga. People won't live very long, mercy will decrease, intelligence will decrease, and the governments will become so bad that you just want to, leave your home and go live in the forest, if there is any forest left. So we're living in Kali Yuga, and I think you can attest, anyone who's lived in it for more than a few years can see how it's degrading at a very rapid rate. So therefore it says, Kaler dosha nide rajan, O king. This is Shukadeva Goswami, the speaker of Bhagavatam, speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, who had a very interesting experience. He was cursed to die in 7 days. You can imagine being cursed to die in 7 days, and knowing that it's a powerful curse that's going to happen. What to do? What to do? So Maharaj Parikshit, he was king of the whole world. He was the emperor. He gave up his kingdom right away, and he went to sit by the bank of the Ganges to fast until death. And all great sages and saints from different parts of the world and beyond this world came to sit down. And then Shukadeva Goswami, the most experienced and advanced transcendentalist of that time, and the knower of Srimad Bhagavatam, he heard it from his father, Vyasadeva. He came to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is the ripened fruit of all the Vedic knowledge. As many of you know, the Vedas are very vast. You got the 4 Vedas, you've got 18 Puranas, one of which is Srimad Bhagavatam, and you've got all of the itihasas, the histories such as Mahabharata and the Ramayana. So if you want to say, well, okay, I know that the ultimate knowledge is here, well, let me check it out. But if you try to study that on your own, it's very difficult. So Lord Chaitanya, he said, the ultimate evidence for what to do, the most essential shastra is Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavat Purana. Why? Because it was written by Vyasadeva after he wrote all the other books. It's described in the Bhagavatam how it came to be written. He was dissatisfied with his all that he had written. You can imagine. He'd written Mahabharata, which has Bhagavad Gita in it. What a wonderful literature that is. He didn't write Ramayana, we know that, but all the other Shastras, the 4 Vedas, yet still he was troubled. Why? And he was puzzling. So Narada Muni, his spiritual master, comes and reveals to him. And he says, you haven't sufficiently glorified Krishna and the devotees and the process of devotional service. And then he spoke very strongly. Nayadvachas chitta padang hare yasho jagat pravitram paganita karichid. That literature, it may be very nicely composed with all kinds of poetic ornaments, but if it doesn't sufficiently glorify Krishna and the process of devotional service, then it's like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. He's talking about other Vedic literatures. What to speak of, Amazon books. Hare Krishna. So basically, all this literature that we have, which doesn't give us any insight into these truths of who we are and who is God, what the relationship is, and how we can redevelop it, is just a big bewildering mass of confusion that is keeping our mind bound here. So Srila Prabhupada came to America only after he had the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam translated and published. Tremendous effort, you can imagine. He's living in Vrindavan, basically, and writing on an old manual typewriter, 2 fingers, typing out the Srimad Bhagavatam. But he had no money. So somehow he was able to raise enough money to print the first volume. With that first volume, he went to people, and after 4 years, he was able to produce the first canon. It was a wonderful, wonderful book. And with those volumes and little else, he got on a boat, not a cruise ship, not an ocean liner, but cargo ship. Cargo ship. It had an apartment there for a passenger, but it wasn't comfortable. It was very dangerous, and he almost died down there. Because he had 2 heart attacks. And so Krishna came to him in his dream and said, "Don't worry. I'm taking charge of the ship. You'll be okay." So then suddenly he's in the Atlantic, and it was September. I know September is still the hurricane season. You know, Atlantic is already pretty rough, quiet. It's like a lake. First miracle. Even the captain had his wife with him on the ship, and she said, "Oh, Swamiji, can you please come back with us? Because that was the smoothest crossing we ever had on the Atlantic." So he landed in New York, and it was for a whole year he struggled to, you know, but he was moved by compassion for us. And this brings us back to what I read about the Nectar Devotion. When you think about it, love and compassion are very much closely related, isn't it? I mean, Prabhupada, his you know, coming to America was such an act of courage and mercy and compassion for us, for everyone, and is writing the books the same thing, so that we can get the knowledge even after he's passed. He says, you can associate with me directly by reading my books, so we should take advantage of that. And even now with the magic of you know, the YouTube, I highly recommend that you can search for it in YouTube, Following Srila Prabhupada. There's a series of 11, and they're quite long, 3 hour long, and Yadubas has distilled so much video. He made this early on, like 20 years ago or more, 25 years ago. And there's so much video that was taken of Prabhupada in Australia and America and different places. And then the devotees who were there, he would somehow find them, and they would narrate, you know, this is what's going on here, you know, that's me over there, you know, and they would give their insights, and it was remarkable. And so you can hear Prabhupada speak, you can see him on morning walks, you know, it's a wonderful way to associate. But the most important way is to read and study his books and try to follow the instructions. So the one other thing I wanted to read, because what is the essence of this process of bhakti? How does it work? Well, first of all, it is a process of purification. By being in the material world and just living in the material world, you're taking on the qualities of whatever association you're in. And every mother knows when she has a growing child, she has to be careful of who he hangs out with, right? In other words, it can be good association and bad association. And so if she hears that you know, you're associating with somebody who, don't do that, you know, that's a bad element, you know. Because association is everything. Association means the contact of the senses with the sense objects, and the most important association is with the words, with what people say, because they're transmitting their beliefs and their understandings. And this is why education is so important. So you come, you hear from the teacher, you read the books, you take the tests, you associate with the other students. And in this way, you gradually develop your knowledge, and you can live in the world nicely. This is the idea. It's essential. Otherwise, you'd be a barbarian. So, but that association, when you can get association with a pure devotee, someone who is knowledgeable of God, who is living the godly life, means no sinful activity at all, and conscious of God in every moment in his life, and on that state of, in that state of peace, fearlessness, and bliss. These are the qualities that Srila Prabhupada emanated. You really want to associate with that person, because then you can, that association will implant the seed of faith, because all of this is, you know, it's invisible. We can't really see Krishna as he is now, but he reaches out to us, most importantly with his pure devotee, when he comes himself, of course, but that's very rare, and with the books of Shastra. The super soul we can't hear now. He's within our heart, but we can't hear he's trying to preach to us, but we don't want to hear it. But he comes externally as the spiritual master, as the other devotees, pure devotees, as books such as Bhagavad Gita, and he comes also as his holy name, and this whole society is Krishna reaching out to us, giving us a way to associate with him. Why do we come? We come because Krishna is here, right? We don't think, oh, there's just a statue of Krishna here. No, this is Krishna. He is manifest through the elements, because we can see. So we can see him and serve him. He comes in, you know, element through stone. But he's not stone. It's Krishna, you know. And the holy name is especially Krishna. Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purnak Shuddho Nityamukto Abhinatva Nama Namino. a very important verse, that the holy name of Krishna is like a Chintamani gem. What is this Chintamani gem? Probably we call it a touchstone. He gave a new meaning to that word, touchstone. And so I heard him use the phrase philosopher's stone also. It's a stone that was thought to be, mythical, that you touch something to it or touch it to something, it turns to gold. You see? But that idea that the Chintamani means a consciousness gem. Chinta means consciousness. So the whole spiritual world, the land is made of Chintamani gem. Everything is alive there. Nothing's dead. Everything is conscious. Prabhupada said you want to go to a kalpa vriksha tree, a desire tree in the spiritual world. Oh, let me get some mangoes to offer to Krishna. Today I think I want some bananas. You go to the same tree and you get the bananas from the same tree. Because it's conscious. Just like Prabhupada gave the example, I can ask my servant here, please get me some water or get me some milk. And they can get me either one, because they're conscious beings. But an ordinary tree is practically unconscious, you get the one fruit. We have nice fig trees out here, and a pomegranate tree, believe it or not. We're getting to offer to Krishna. Very fortunate trees. So, just to continue and wind up, you can maybe have some questions. I just wanted to read one little sentence, a couple of sentences from this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the essence, ripen fruit of all the Vedas. So this is from chapter 3 of the second canto, entitled Pure Devotional Service. So there's a whole list of demigods you can worship for specific subjects, specific boons. If you want to, get healthy, you worship Surya, the sun god. If you want a very strong body, you can worship Indra. If you want a beautiful wife, you worship Urvashi, I think, or something like that. Uma. I don't want to make a mistake on that one. So there's a whole list, you see. But then at the end of this whole list, he says, but a person who has broader intelligence means udaradi. Whether one be full of all material desires, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the supreme whole, the personality of Godhead. In other words, don't waste time worshiping demigods or worshiping some politician or struggling hard to get something in this material world and accumulate, because it won't solve your problem. You'll simply come back again, hopefully a human body, maybe not, and you'll continue the round of birth and death. So whether, and Krishna says very explicitly in Bhagavad Gita, yes, you may worship Indra, the gods, and drink the soma juice, and if you do it just right and say the right mantras, then you'll go up to Indra Loka. Tetam bhuktva svarga lokam vishalam chine punye martya lokam shanin. But then you may live for a long time and enjoy like anything, but ultimately you'll have to come back down to martya loka. Who knows what martya loka means? The world of death. He doesn't mince any words. So you're simply coming and going. You're not making any progress. So don't worship gods for anything material. And don't strive for material things here. Rather worship Krishna and go to Krishna. He says that right in the Bhagavad Gita. Whoever you worship, you'll go there. So here in this passage, after all of that, he says, but the really intelligent person should worship the personality of Godhead. Now in this purport, I wanted to read this one thing, because this is the essence of Bhakti Yoga. This is how we can come to the platform of really experiencing spiritual pleasure, which simply expands and expands and expands and comes to the point of never ending and ever variety. And that's what the Nectar of Devotion describes also. So he says, and akama is one who has no material desire. Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Akama is one who has no material desire. That's what we should aspire for. A living being, naturally being part and parcel of the Supreme Whole, this is my Vangsha, has as his natural function to serve the Supreme Being, just as the parts and parcels of the body, the limbs of the body, are naturally meant to serve the whole body. Desireless. What is desireless? We have to come to the point of desire. It means free of material desire. We want to be full of desire to serve Krishna. Desireless means, therefore, not to be inert like the stone, but to be conscious of one's actual position and thus desire satisfaction, or desire only the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. So Srila Jiva Goswami has explained this desirelessness as, and this phrase, it's a Sanskrit, it's not a verse, but it's a little prose passage, encompasses the essence of what Bhakti Yoga is all about. Bhajaniya Padama Purusha Sukha Matra Swasukatvam, which means, this is Sandarbhas, in the 6 Sandarbhas. This means that one should feel happy only by experiencing the happiness of the Supreme Lord. This intuition of the living being is sometimes manifested even during the conditioned stage, and he talks about altruism, philanthropy, etc. But that phrase, now, the point is, Krishna's ability to enjoy is unlimited. Anandamayo Bhyasat. That any of his pastimes, even when he's killing the demons, he's having a good time. You know, he's never depressed, he's never in anxiety, he's never afraid. He's always simply playing. That's what Leela means. It means he can do it or not do it. He's not forced to do anything. He does it because he wants to do it. And we know from this month, this beautiful, wonderful, all-attractive pastime of him running from his mother, crying, being naughty, isn't it? Now, what is he doing there? He's simply evoking different varieties of her love for him, and he's enjoying that exchange. This is called Bhakti Rasa. Bhakti Rasa. It's an exchange. Bhakti means reciprocal. And so we also have our original rasa with Krishna, but we've lost it. And we're trying to enjoy some perverted reflection of it in this material world and suffering. So let's end our suffering. We have the process of doing it. So the essence of it is to take one's pleasure from giving pleasure to Krishna. Now, there's a wide variety of ways of doing that. You know, he takes the greatest pleasure when you give pleasure to his devotees. He says that in many places. So that's practical, you know. And one way of pleasing the devotees is, you know, chant Hare Krishna, and someone hears, and then you listen to them chanting. And this is Sankirtan, chanting the chanting of the holy name. So when we chant his holy name, when we read his books, when we bring some offering for him, when we participate in the festivals, when we see the beauty of the deities and appreciate it, that's all pleasing to him. And that's why it's giving us spiritual pleasure. We may not understand how it's working, but there's some attraction here. What's the attraction? The attraction is Krishna. He's all attractive. And he's giving us a chance to see him and serve him and glorify him and associate with devotees and become purified. And the pure devotee, at every moment, he's experiencing that reciprocation with Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's effort to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world is the most pleasing thing that could possibly be for Krishna. He says that in the Bhagavad Gita. There's no devotee more dear to me than one who is preaching my message. And Srila Prabhupada is the world preacher. So we can also do that. We develop our faith by associating with Prabhupada through his books, chanting the holy name. I started chanting 2 rounds a day back in 1971. I didn't know I was going to join the Hare Krishnas. I just wanted to improve my meditation. I was into Hatha Yoga, you know. But I came in touch with the books, I came in touch with the mantra, and I was experiencing I was chanting to my patients. I told you, somebody came over here earlier, I worked in a hospital. So I tried to cure them, you know, chanting in my mind. It worked for my father. This is, yes, a miracle, you can say, or the power of Krishna. My father had a stroke. He was only 62. I was already in the movement. No, I wasn't in the movement. I was just chanting Hare Krishna and appreciating benefits and reading about the potency of it. So he was only 62, and the doctor said there's very little hope for him, you know, and everything. So I went to his bedside, put my hand on his head, and at that time I was really into chanting in my mind, you know, which you can do, but you chant out loud first. And so I just chanted as loud as I could and tried to project the mantra, you know, I didn't know what I was doing, into his brain, you know, as he tried to cure it, you know. So I can't say he jumped out of bed and started dancing, no. But the doctor came in, I had to leave, you know. They were very pessimistic. They said to my mother, who was distraught, you know, he was only 62, which is pretty young, that there's very little chance of him recovering, you know. He recovered. He didn't recover 100%. He had a cane after that, but he could speak nicely, you know, and everything. He lived 18 more years. He met the governor of New York. He was campaigning, you know, in order to get more help for the seniors, you know, he was into that. And he never tired of asking me when I'm coming out of this thing. You know, he didn't appreciate me being in the Hare Krishnas. But that's all right. He knew I was in the Hare Krishnas, and he would, you know, in that time, chant Hare Krishna. So anyway, that's that's just my own idea. Maybe it's coincidence, whatever. But the thing is, it will definitely heal our material disease for anybody who chants. And so why not? Do it regularly. On the beads, we have beads we can give you. You can get in I think the store will be open later. And come as much as possible, read Srila Prabhupada's books, and press the right buttons on your computer so you tune in San Diego live. And we have classes, kirtans, darshan, and take advantage of the facilities that we have. And that's all I have to say. So, unless there are some questions or comments. We have a question here. No, hold on. We have a mic because people are online.
So Guruji, I recently started reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and I was reading the Canto 2, and I come across some phrases which I don't understand. And one is, it seems to be quite intentionally chosen. That's the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yes.
And the second thing I find is like the usage of word transcendental all over. So because I don't want to interpret in a wrong way, I'd like you to tell me the right meaning.
Well, you came to the right place, because I've been editing Prabhupada's books for almost 50 years, so I think I could probably answer that question. Most devotees, I think, could. So Supreme Personality of Godhead was Prabhupada's translation of the word Bhagavan. You'll find in the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. And Prabhupada almost always translates that as the Supreme Personality of Godhead said. So what does that mean? Well, the Supreme Personality of Godhead implies that there are other personalities of Godhead who aren't supreme. And indeed that is the case. What is supreme, first of all, that word Bhagavan is defined by Parashara Muni as Aishwarasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yashashakshriya Jnana Vairagyasya Shannam Bhagahitingana. Shannam Bhaga means 6 opulences or 6. So Krishna is unlimited in his wealth. Commonly said, he owns everything. Ishavasya idam sarvam, So he's very, very wealthy. He's the husband of the goddess of fortune. Who could be? It's powerful strength. We just heard. This is the time we were remembering him lifting this hill with a little pinky. He creates the whole universe. Fame. Who could be more famous than God? And Shriya, beauty. This is very important opulence. And Vairagya, detachment. He has everything. He's not attached to anything. Renunciation, he can renounce. Famously, he called all the gopis out in the middle of the night, the idyllic situation, and they all came and they were with him, and then they started the rasa dance, they were just wandering. And then they became a little proud, boom, he disappeared. He was completely detached, And they went mad in separation, like that. So he has these opulences. He's the Supreme Personality of God. The other personalities don't have all of those opulences as full as he is. Just like Lord Nrsingadev. I don't have anything against Lord Nrsingadev. I think, I pray his protection. But he doesn't have the kind of beauty that Krishna has, that he manifests in Vrindavan, especially, the power, yes, for sure, so he has it. So this is the idea, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you'll find that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, those other incarnations appear one after another, and you'll see they manifest some wonderful pastime, The other one was transcendental. Transcendental, you can look up in the dictionary. It means beyond the range of our material senses and mind. There's a nice word, a name for Krishna, that means transcendental. Adhoksha Ja. This name, it's not a Vrindavan name, you won't find the gopis chanting that name. Adha Aksha Ja, it's made of 3 words. Ja means born or producing. Aksha is eyes or all the senses, and the knowledge that's produced from our senses, this is ordinary knowledge that we get, scientific knowledge. That's Akshaja. But Krishna's Adokshaja means that he pushes it down. He's beyond that knowledge. If you can have the most powerful telescope, microscope, big brain, you'll never get 1 inch toward Krishna, because he reserves the right of keeping himself hidden. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavita. So how can we know him? By serving him. Bhaktya mama vijanati yapanjaschasmi tattvataha. In order to know God in truth, we have to become his servants. And the more sincere we are and pure we are, the more he'll reveal. It's all revelatory knowledge. And it does, you get some right away. If you sincerely, take the first step, then it may manifest in the form of being very interested in reading the Bhagavad Gita. You'll be very curious. Who is this Krishna? I've been chanting his name, and I'm feeling much more peaceful, and and so that curiosity is essential. Tato Brahman Jigyasa. So that's the answer to your question. The transcendental and Supreme Personality of Godhead. There may be others. You can write to me. We have glossaries too. Hare Krishna. Any other question? Babu. Yeah, right here. You've been coming here as long as I've been here.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank the devotee there for giving excellent opportunity to listen about that explanation from you. Wonderful. I just had a quick one. So you talked about the how our thoughts or desires and actions kind of formulated template for us, right? Birth. So I guess over the life cycle, that template kind of evolves for good or bad based on what we do. Yes. And then the culmination is the final snapshot at the time of death. That's why we say that at Antakale, whatever we are thinking, decides.
Yes, Krishna said. Yeah, we're just studying that verse in the evening class, Bhagavad Gita. So if you're really interested in it, you can tune in tomorrow night, 7:15 on YouTube. Yeah, Antakale chamameva smaran mukta. And the general principle, yang vapi smaram bhavam chajan chante kalevalam tam tamevati konteya sanata bhava bhavita. That's the next verse in the 8th chapter. Whatever is your most prominent thought at the time of death, that will determine your next life. Right. So we have to be careful. If you're really into video games, and that's your main, you can imagine what you're going to think of. You'll be part of a video game somewhere, No, you don't want that.
Thank you.
So the idea is you get up early in the morning, and you leave enough time to practice sadhana and chanting Hare Krishna, and you try to take it with you through your day. Now it's ideal, you're living in the temple, of course it's made for that. But you want to come to the point of thinking of Krishna every moment. No forgetfulness. Avismati Krishna Padara Vindayo. Unbroken remembrance of Krishna. Then your path back to God is for sure. But the thing is, if as soon as you want to enjoy Krishna's energy, you forget Krishna. It's just like a thief. He doesn't want to, he doesn't want to think that the police are, watching you. Then you can't do his thing, But the police may be watching you, but you'll forget that and do his thing, and then you get caught. So that's the idea.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the wonderful class. I just have a quick question. Similar to like a Jamil calling out Narayan when he's not, like, what if we make our video game characters like Krishna? They name it Krishna, and then when we die and we love video games, we're thinking of Krishna.
Why don't you do that? Create that video game. There may be video games like that. I don't know. That's okay. That's okay. But the thing is, the very format of the video game tends to awaken the mode of passion. In other words, you want to be competing. Better to follow the parampara, the chanting and dancing. Okay, anyone else? Otherwise, we can have our final kirtan. I kind of blew out my voice. I won't be able to lead. Last night, the first kirtan, I always forget. And this happened a week ago with Ram Vijay on the beach. But we have some wonderful kirtan leaders here. So thank you very much for joining us, and please take advantage of what we have, facilities, and read Srila Prabhupada's books. Hare Krishna.
Jai Dravida. Thank you, Prabhu. So if everyone could stand up and move their mats to the side, and we're going to have a stand-up kirtan.